In the midst of the tense atmosphere between Brussels and London, the European Parliament postponed the decision to set a date for the ratification of the post-Brexit agreement, the TCA. By the way, you should stay tuned until the end if you don't want to miss anything interesting. And if you don't want to miss anything at all, just subscribe to my channel and click the little bell. Then you get a notification when I publish another video. In the midst of the tense atmosphere between Brussels and London, the European Parliament postponed the decision to set a date for the ratification of the post-Brexit agreement. And that is kind of new. It is obvious. If the UK does not respect the previous agreement, what is the point of ratifying what is on the table? Said Philip Lamberts, co-leader of the Greens in the EU Parliament, on Thursday to the AFP news agency. For a long time it was expected that MEPs would vote on the adoption of the trade agreement in late March or April. A decision about setting a date for the vote has now been postponed for the second time. If ratification is not achieved by the end of April, we will have a no-deal situation, warned Lamberts. I hope by then the UK will be back on its feet. The trade agreement between the UK and the EU came provisionally into force on January 1st, at the same time as the UK left the customs union and the EU internal market. The agreement on the agreement at the end of December was preceded by 9 months of tough negotiations between negotiators on both sides. Influential MEPs in the EU Parliament have threatened to prevent ratification of the trade agreement. The background to this is a dispute over the extension of transitional regulations for the importation of British goods into Northern Ireland, which the UK had recently unilaterally decided. The EU regards the measure as a violation of the Brexit Treaty, the withdrawal agreement. On Thursday, Great Britain also announced the postponement of the introduction of import controls for goods from the EU by 6 months. The government in London said it was responding to concerns of the economy, which was facing unprecedented challenges due to the corona pandemic. Yeah, but the issues we have now are not corona-related, they are Brexit-related. The importers should be given more time to get back on their feet before the new regulations gradually come into force from October, said Brexit Minister David Frost. Those regulations are not new, you knew them already 2015 in your campaign. Unlike the EU, London provided a step-by-step plan for the introduction of the not new import regulations. The implementation of the individual steps has now been postponed by 6 months. The new rules for import of products of animal origin will not take effect until October. British companies had complained about difficulties in trade with the EU at the beginning of the year. According to the British government, the trade volume was back to normal levels in February. The association says different, but okay. In contrast to the transitional regulations for the importation of British goods into Northern Ireland, the import controls on British soil are solely British responsibility, and that's the whole problem here. And another part in the Brexit chaos, the fact that Great Britain is currently suffering a second political disaster is being forgotten. A few days ago, Hitachi put its plans for a new nuclear power plant in Wilfer, Wales on hold. And please, my Welsh viewers, don't kill me for the pronunciation. This has nothing to do with fundamental doubts about the atomic bombs of Her Majesty, says environmental expert Frank Urkötter. It is the second decision of its kind within a few months. In November, Toshiba withdrew from the Moorside reactor project in northwest England. And this has nothing to do with any fundamental doubts about nuclear power. The British anti-nuclear movement has focused on Her Majesty's atomic bombs for decades. But most people don't really care about civil reactors. When students are asked whether they are for or against nuclear power, there's usually a solid 2/3 majority in favor. The rest of them abstain because they have the feeling that something is wrong with the question. There's also no powerful nuclear company in Great Britain, like, for example, the French state-owned company EDF. For a long time, the country relied on uneconomical Magnox reactors. After long turmoil, the power plants were privatized as British Energy in 1996. 6 years later, the company went bankrupt. Everything indicated that Britain would phase out nuclear power. It just didn't pay off. That only changed when Tony Blair's government wanted to revamp its climate policy. With a view to the approaching climate summit in Copenhagen, the British Parliament passed a climate protection law in 2008. Nuclear power became the cornerstone of this new energy policy. The plan for the now cancelled Wilford nuclear power plant was created during exactly this time. The project began in 2009 as a joint venture between RWE npower and E.ON UK. At that time, the two German companies promised an operational reactor for 2020. In 2012, though, they sold the company to Hitachi. According to some information, the Japanese company has invested around £2 billion in the project without being happy with it. Nuclear power plants have always had an economic shortcoming. They are expensive to build, cheap to operate, and then expensive to demolish. It is the other way round with gas and coal-fired power plants, although the dirt is a different kind. That makes nuclear power a difficult business model even if everything goes according to plan. In fact, the new nuclear power plants currently being built in France, Finland, England, and the USA are mostly noticeable for delays and cost explosions. Over the years, the British government's negotiating position deteriorated. There are only a few companies in the world that can build nuclear power plants. And you are on the defensive right from the start if you really want a reactor. Smart managers played for time and watched how big the morning gift was. The contract for the Hinkley Point C nuclear power plant only came about because the government promised billions in subsidies and guaranteed prices for the electricity. 10 years after the Climate Change Act, Hinkley Point C is the only nuclear power plant whose construction is assured. The British government is also in ruins when it comes to energy policy. It can either develop a new energy policy without nuclear power or keep making new concessions. Hitachi has already indicated that they are open to further discussions. The Brexit chaos is a very British affair. In contrast, energy policy is about business realities. It is a lesson for everyone who is still dreaming of a new atomic age. Although I'm not dreaming of a new atomic age, but I personally still feel that the end of nuclear power in Germany comes too early. That is one decision of my government I disagree with. I'm not alone, but I'm not in the majority there, I know that. But we should have waited until we have our renewable energy where it has to be sufficient. And that would be then the time to get out of nuclear power. But we don't have the proper storage and everything to do that now. And the alternative is now coal energy or gas energy, and that is much dirtier than nuclear power. And we have to deal with nuclear waste anyway, so a little bit more wouldn't have changed that one. But we will see how that will turn out in the end. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.